I see you, I appreciate you, and I'm thankful you subscribed and keep showing up. This space is built on your insights. Leave your thoughts and lessons below. Now, cue the tension, cue the truth, let's get into it. If you have ever felt like you are competing with a screen, a schedule, or someone's stress for the right to be acknowledged, listen closely to what happens in this story. One of the clearest red flags is not shouting. It is silence that only shows up around you. When a partner could be warm everywhere else, at work, with family, with strangers, but goes flat the moment you enter the room, that is not a phase you should ignore. The decision point is simple and brutal. Do you keep auditioning for basic attention, or do you set a boundary that forces the truth into daylight? Before we get into it, have you ever watched someone be warm to everyone else, then go completely cold with you? Drop a comment. Invisible if you've been there, or not me if you haven't. And if you want more real, emotionally detailed stories like this, please share, and subscribe. It helps these stories reach the people who need them. My wife, Nia, did not start ignoring me with cruelty. It started with a kind of efficiency, like she was trying to move through life faster than her feelings. I would come home from the transit garage smelling like brake dust and winter air, and she would be at the counter with her laptop open, answering emails from the hospital. "Give me a second," she would say, not looking up. The seconds became whole evenings. I told myself it was normal. We were in our 30s. We had bills. We had obligations. Love, I thought, could live in the gaps. The first time I noticed how quiet our marriage had become was in a diner in Northeast Philadelphia, the kind with laminated menus and a bell over the door that never stops ringing. We used to split pancakes and laugh at the kids arguing in the booth behind us. That morning, she scrolled through her phone while her coffee cooled. A waitress with tired eyes asked if we were celebrating something. Nia said, "No," without looking up, and I said, "We're just here." The waitress gave me a sympathetic smile I did not want. On the walk back to the car, Nia talked about staffing shortages like it was the only language she still spoke. I am not the kind of man who needs constant reassurance. My father raised me in a row house where you fix what broke, and you did not dramatize every scratch. I could handle a busy season. I could handle stress. But I could not understand the way she looked through me, like I was a lamp she had gotten used to turning on without noticing. When I tried to tell her I missed her, she answered like a manager. "I hear you," she'd say, and then she'd pivot to logistics. Grocery run, car inspection. Her sister's birthday is coming up. Her sister's name is Alondra, and she is the kind of woman who fills rooms without trying. She teaches 4th grade, wears bright lipstick even on errands, and remembers people's favorite cake flavors like it is a sacred duty. Every year she throws herself a birthday party, not because she is selfish, but because she is determined to make joy on purpose. This year she rented the fellowship hall at her church in Cherry Hill, across the river. She called it a grown-up party, which meant a DJ, a dance floor, and Annie's arriving early to supervise the food. Nia talked about Alondra's party the way she used to talk about us when we were dating. Focused, invested, animated. "We have to be there on time," she said one night, tapping her calendar like it was a judge. Alondra hates late entrances. I watched my wife's face light up for her sister, and it stung in a particular way. It was not jealousy of Alondra. It was grief. I miss being someone who could pull that kind of light out of Nia. I miss being the reason she smiled without checking whether she had time. A week before the party, I sat in my barber's chair on Germantown Avenue, while Darnell lined up my beard with slow precision. The shop smelled like clipper oil and peppermint aftershave. A radio host argued with callers about the Eagles, and men laughed like it was a family reunion. Darnell asked how Nia was doing. I said, "Busy." He tilted my chin and studied my face in the mirror. "Busy is fine," he said. "Invisible is different." I felt heat rise in my throat. I nodded like he had said something obvious. That same night, I decided to try one more honest conversation. Not a complaint. Not a fight. A simple request, delivered like you hand someone a glass carefully, hoping they do not drop it. Nia was on the couch with a throw blanket over her knees, watching a home renovation show with the volume low. I sat beside her, leaving space, like I was approaching a skittish animal. "Can we talk for 10 minutes? I asked. She sighed, eyes still on the screen. About what, Marcus? Even my name sounded like a task. I told her I felt alone in our house. I told her I missed her voice when it wasn't clipped and tired. I told her I wanted us to have one night a week that belonged to us, even if it was just takeout and a walk. She nodded at the correct moments. She even reached for my hand, briefly, like a courtesy, and then she checked her phone when it buzzed. Her thumb moved fast, practiced. When I paused, waiting for her to come back, she didn't. She kept scrolling. The renovation show played on. I realized my 10 minutes had expired without a response. I wish I could say I stood up right then and demanded respect. I did not. My first big decision was a quiet kind. I chose not to chase her attention that night. I did not raise my voice to compete with her phone. I did not say something sharp just to make her look up. I stood, took the trash out, and let the cold air slap my face. Outside, the streetlights reflected off the damp pavement. Somewhere down the block, a bus hissed at a stop. I told myself I was practicing patience. Really, I was practicing denial. The ignoring grew more creative after that, like she was learning how to disappear without technically leaving. She would answer questions about the dishwasher, but not questions about her day. She would remember her co-worker's birthday, but forget I had a follow-up appointment for my shoulder. She would laugh at something on her screen, and then look surprised when I asked what was funny, as if it had not occurred to her I was allowed to share her air. When I tried to hug her from behind while she cooked, she stiffened for half a second before forcing a normal posture. Half a second was enough. 2 days before Alondra's birthday party, we met Alondra at a corner store to pick up extra paper plates. The place had a plexiglass barrier and a cat sleeping on a stack of soda cases. Alondra talked a mile a minute about the DJ she hired and the playlist she demanded, old school R&B, no exceptions. Nia laughed, really laughed, and touched her sister's arm while she did it. I stood there holding a bag of ice and felt like the third wheel in my own marriage. Alondra looked at me and said, "You okay, brother-in-law?" I lied smoothly. "I'm good." That night, I found myself doing something I hate, counting. Counting how many times Nia spoke to me without being prompted. Counting how many meals we ate facing each other. Counting how many minutes passed before she checked her phone. I told myself numbers would make it rational, manageable, like a budget you can fix. But relationships are not budgets. Numbers do not hug you back. At midnight, I heard her in the bathroom brushing her teeth while watching a video. The sound of the faucet ran. She did not say goodnight. I slept with one ear open, like we were strangers in a motel. The morning of the party arrived with heavy clouds and that pale winter light that makes everything look slightly unfinished. I woke early and drove to my mother's house in West Oak Lane to drop off a space heater she needed. My mother moved slowly these days, but her eyes stayed sharp. She watched me carry the heater inside and asked, "What's wrong with your face?" I told her I was tired. She snorted. "That's not tiring. That's waiting." She handed me a plate of grits like food could fix anything. "Don't beg for a seat at a table you helped build," she said. I went home and found Nia in the bedroom, stepping into a fitted burgundy dress. Her hair was pressed smooth and curled at the ends. She looked beautiful in a way that felt cruel, because beauty without warmth is just a picture. "How do I look?" she asked, turning slightly. I could have lied and said, "Amazing," the way I used to, hoping praise would buy closeness. My second big decision arrived like a stone in my palm. I chose honesty over smoothing things over. "You look like you're ready to be seen," I said. Her smile faltered, then returned as if pasted. "It's Alondra's day," she replied. The drive to Cherry Hill was short, but the silence made it feel longer. The windshield wipers squeaked against a light drizzle. Nia checked the time twice and replied to messages that did not involve me. I gripped the steering wheel and reminded myself why I was going. I was going because I loved Alondra, because family mattered, and because part of me wanted to see if my wife could still act like my wife when the world was watching. That thought embarrassed me. It made my love feel small, like it needed an audience to survive. But I did not know what else to do. The church fellowship hall was warm and loud the moment we walked in. A table near the entrance held gift bags and a guest book with a glittery pen. Aunties in bright shawls carried aluminum trays like trophies. The smell of fried chicken, macaroni, and sweet potato pie wrapped around me. The DJ tested the microphone, and his voice echoed, "Check, check," like a warning. Alondra squealed when she saw us and pulled Nia into a tight hug. "You made it," she said, and then she hugged me too. Her warmth made my chest ache. Nia transformed into that room. She complimented earrings, laughed at jokes, and offered to help arrange cupcakes. She moved through people like she belonged to them. I watched her with a mixture of pride and hurt. Pride, because she was brilliant with others. Hurt, because she treated me like a coat she could hang up when she got comfortable. When the DJ started playing a slow song during the first hour, a couple near the dance floor began to sway. Alondra clapped her hands. "Not yet," she yelled, laughing. "Y'all wait till after we eat." The room roared with approval. We ate at a long table with plastic tablecloths in gold and cream. Nia sat beside Alondra and across from their cousin, Renee, who loved to tell stories with her hands. I sat at the end near the napkins, refilling drinks when asked, smiling when addressed. A little boy ran past with a balloon. Someone's uncle argued about whether the DJ was playing the right version of a song. It was normal, joyful chaos. Nia did not look at me once unless I spoke first. When I reached for her hand under the table, she moved it away to adjust her fork. The movement was small, but it landed heavy. After dinner, Alondra insisted on a tradition, the birthday walk. Everyone formed a circle around the dance floor, and the DJ played an upbeat track, while Alondra walked through the center, waving like a pageant queen. People tossed compliments like confetti. "Look at you. 40 looks good. You deserve everything." Alondra beamed, then pointed at me. "Marcus, you better clap loud," she teased. I clapped so hard my palms tingled. I meant it. Alondra deserved loud claps. I just wish my own wife had ever looked at me like that. Like I deserved anything at all. The DJ shifted the mood the way DJs do, easing from upbeat to slow and romantic. Couples drifted toward the floor, some laughing, some shy, some too comfortable to pretend. The lights dimmed slightly. Nia turned toward me, and for a second my heart lifted, stupid and hopeful. She slid her hand into mine with a grip that felt intentional, almost urgent. "Come on," she said softly. "Dance with me?" Her voice was pleasant, but her eyes flicked past my shoulder, scanning the room. That scan was the needle. It stabbed through my hope and pinned it to the floor. I did not answer immediately. I looked at her hand on mine. It had been weeks since she held my hand like that, and now she did it in a crowded hall, dressed to impress. I thought about my mother's words. I thought about Darnell's mirror. I thought about every "give me a second" that turned into nothing. Then I made my third big decision, the one that would change everything. I pulled my hand back gently. "No," I said, not loud, not dramatic, just clear. Nia blinked like I had spoken the wrong language. "What do you mean, no?" she asked. The question was not confusing. It was disbelief that I would refuse her script. She leaned closer, smile still present, voice lower. "Marcus, stop," she whispered. "People are watching." There it was, the truth, naked and impatient. Not, "I miss you." Not, "I want you." Not, "Let's have a moment." Just, people are watching. I felt my face heat, not from rage, but from shame. Shame that I had let my marriage become a public performance. I stepped back so there was space between us. "Then let them watch," I said, and I saw a fear spark behind her eyes. A few heads turned. Not the whole room, but enough. Alondra, mid-conversation near the cake table, glanced over with a curious frown. Nia's fingers fluttered at her side, as if she wanted to grab my sleeve and drag me into compliance. "You're doing this here?" she hissed through her smile. I could have saved her. I could have swallowed my feelings for one night and given her what she wanted. That was an option. But I heard myself speak anyway. "I'm not dancing for your image," I said. The words came out steadier than I felt. Nia's smile cracked like thin ice. She grabbed my wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, but hard enough to control. "Please," she whispered, and for a second it sounded like real desperation. "Just one song." I studied her face for sincerity and found mostly panic. I realized she was not asking for connection. She was asking for camouflage. I eased my wrist out of her hand. "I'm done pretending," I said. Her eyes glistened. "You're embarrassing me," she whispered. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. She was still centered in her own story. "You embarrassed me for months," I said, and that landed. Nia's breath caught. "What are you talking about?" she asked, voice sharp now, losing the polite mask. I glanced around and saw Renee watching openly, her eyebrows raised. An older couple near the wall went quiet. The DJ kept playing, but the air around us tightened. I should have walked away then, to keep it contained. I did not. "You ignore me," I said, and my voice cracked slightly on the last word. "At home. Every day." Nia's eyes widened, and she shook her head fast, like denial could erase reality. "This is not the time," she snapped. "It's my sister's birthday." That sentence hurt more than the others, because it tried to make me the villain for finally speaking. I looked past her and saw Alondra approaching slowly, sensing the shift. Alondra's face was cautious, not angry yet, just alert. "What's going on?" she asked, glancing from Nia to me. Nia forced a laugh that sounded like a cough. "Nothing," she said quickly. "Marcus is he's tired." The way she said my name made it feel like a defect. My stomach turned. I made a choice in that moment that could have gone differently. I could have let Nia label me, kept quiet, let the party continue. Instead, I looked at Alondra and said, "I'm not tired. I'm hurt." Alondra's expression softened, and she nodded once. Slow. "Okay," she said, steady as a teacher calming classroom. "Not here, though." She glanced at Nia, and her gaze sharpened. "Not on my dance floor." Nia's eyes flashed. "It's not like that," she insisted. But Alondra lifted a hand. "I love both of you," she said, voice low. "But today is my day. If y'all need to step outside, do it. Quiet." There was no drama in Alondra. There was a boundary. I respected it. Nia looked like she wanted to argue. Then she swallowed and nodded stiffly. We moved toward the hallway by the bathrooms, where the noise dulled and the fluorescent lights made everyone look tired. A stack of folding chairs leaned against the wall. A little girl in a sparkly dress ran past, chasing her cousin, unaware that adults were unraveling. Nia crossed her arms. "What is wrong with you?" she demanded. The question came out like an accusation, as if the problem was my refusal, not her neglect. I felt my eyes burn. "You don't see me," I said. "You don't talk to me unless it's about chores. You don't touch me unless you need a picture-perfect moment." Nia scoffed. "That is not true," she said, but her voice wobbled. I could hear the party behind us, laughter rising, music pulsing. Life continues. "Tell me the last time you asked about my day without checking your phone," I said. "Tell me the last time you kissed me because you wanted to." Nia's mouth opened and then closed. Silence answered for her. Her eyes filled. For a second, I saw something real. Shame, maybe. Then she stiffened again. "You are making me look bad," she said, and I felt something inside me go cold. "That's your biggest fear," I said quietly. "Not losing me. Looking bad." She flinched as if I had slapped her, and her voice dropped. "I'm under pressure, Marcus," she said. "You don't understand what my job is like." I almost snapped back, but I held it. I knew about pressure. I worked on buses that carried hundreds of people a day. One mistake could hurt someone. Pressure was not an excuse to erase your spouse. "I understand stress," I said. "What I don't understand is how you could be kind to strangers and empty with me." Tears slid down her cheeks, and she wiped them with the heel of her hand, angry at the evidence of her own feelings. Alondra appeared at the end of the hallway, not intruding, just checking. She gave me a look that asked, "Are you okay?" I nodded slightly. She nodded back and stepped away, letting us handle our mess. That mercy made me respect her even more. Nia whispered, "Can we just get through tonight?" The words were familiar. Always later, always after, always not now. I felt exhausted by the endless postponement of my own needs. My voice softened, not because I was giving in, but because I was tired of being sharp. I will not dance with you for appearances, I said. If you want a husband, talk to me like one. Nia stared at me, and I watched her decide what story she wanted to tell herself. She could tell herself I was cruel, ruining her sister's party. Or she could tell herself she had been absent and got called out. She swallowed. Fine, she said, and the word was brittle. Then don't dance. She turned to leave, and I had a split second where I almost reached for her. Almost. But I let her walk back into the noise. I stood in that hallway alone, listening to the bass of the music, and I felt both powerful and devastated. Boundaries are not clean. They cut both ways. I went outside into the parking lot where the drizzle had turned into a mist. The air smelled like wet asphalt and cigarette smoke from someone's car. I leaned against the side of my Honda and breathed slowly, trying to keep my chest from tightening. My phone buzzed. A text from my friend Lionel. You good? Saw you step out. Lionel was married, too, the kind of man who kept his promises. I hesitated, then typed back, not really. A minute later, need a ride home? I stared at the screen, considering the next decision. Leaving would be final. Staying would be pretending. I chose a third path. I went back inside, not to dance, but to show my face for Alondra's sake. I found Alondra near the cake, laughing with two coworkers. When she saw me, her smile softened into something careful. You okay? She asked. I did not lie this time. I'm trying, I said. She squeezed my arm. Don't let my party be the place you break, she said quietly. But don't let it be the place you disappear either. That was Alondra, able to speak truth without turning it into spectacle. I thanked her and stepped back into the crowd. Nia was on the dance floor now, swaying with her cousin Renee, laughing too loudly. It looked like relief. It also looked like avoidance. The DJ announced the next slow song, and couples paired off again. Nia did not look in my direction. A year ago, that would have crushed me. Tonight it did something else. It clarified. She could be fine without me, as long as the room stayed warm. When Alondra cut the cake, everyone gathered. Nia took photos, angling them for good lighting. She made sure I was in a couple shots, tugging me close with a smile that did not reach her eyes. I stood for the pictures because Alondra deserved memories without tension, but I felt like a cardboard cutout of a husband. We left before the last song, claiming early morning obligations. In the car, Nia stared straight ahead. Her hands were clasped tight in her lap. The wipers squeaked again, steady like a metronome. Halfway over the bridge, she said, "You could have waited." Her voice was quiet now, but still defensive. You could have talked to me at home. I gripped the wheel harder. I tried, I said. At home, you don't hear me. She turned toward me, eyes wet. That's not fair, she whispered. I laughed once, a short sound with no humor. Fair is what I beg for, I said. I'm just late to my own life. At home, she went straight to the bathroom and shut the door. I sat on the edge of the couch, still in my good shirt, listening to the muffled sound of running water. I realized I was waiting again, waiting for her to come out, waiting for an apology, waiting for something to change. I stood up and made another decision. I moved into the guest room that night. I did not announce it. I did not slam doors. I simply took a pillow, a blanket, and my phone charger and closed the door behind me. If she wanted to talk, she knew where I was. The next morning, she knocked softly. Marcus? She asked through the door. I opened it and saw her standing there in a sweatshirt, hair wrapped, eyes swollen. She looked like someone who had been awake all night arguing with herself. Can we talk? She asked. I nodded and followed her to the kitchen. The sunlight was thin, and the radiator clanged like it was complaining. She poured coffee with shaky hands. I didn't know it was that bad, she said. The sentence made me want to scream, because it meant she had not been paying attention. But it also sounded like truth, which was almost worse. We talked in fragments, not speeches. She said she had been drowning at work. She said she felt like she was failing everywhere, so she narrowed her world to what she could control. Schedules, tasks, appearance. I told her control was not love. I told her she had treated me like background noise. She cried quietly and said, I hate that you think I don't care. I stared into my mug. I don't think so, I said. I live it. She flinched again. I could see she wanted quick repair, a simple apology that would restore the old normal. But the old normal was a problem. That week, consequences unfolded the way they always do, slow and public. Alondra called me twice, checking in. She did not take sides in her voice, but I heard worry. Nia's mother called her and then called me, because news travels fast in families where birthdays are sacred and discomfort is discussed over casseroles. Nia's mother told me she loved me, then asked what I did to upset her daughter. I felt anger flare. I kept my tone even. I didn't upset her, I said. I stopped cooperating with being ignored. There was a pause and then a quiet, Lord. The conversation ended with no resolution. Nia tried to overcorrect at first. She made dinner, asked about my day, suggested a movie. Her efforts felt real but also frantic, like she was trying to patch a hole with tape before anyone noticed a leak. I did not reward the performance. That was another decision. I chose consistency over relief. I told her I appreciated the effort, but we were not going to pretend 1 week of kindness erased months of distance. She stared at me like I was being unreasonable. So what do you want? She asked, voice sharp. I answered, I want the truth, and I want time. Time was the one thing she could not schedule. 2 Saturdays after the party, I met Lionel at a small coffee shop near the bus depot where I worked. The place smelled like burnt espresso and cinnamon. Lionel listened while I spoke in uneven bursts, stopping when my throat tightened. He did not interrupt to give advice. That is why I trusted him. When I finished, he said, You did not refuse a dance. You refused a pattern. He stared out the window for a moment. But don't confuse refusal with healing, he added. Boundaries open the door. They don't walk you through it. I nodded slowly. I knew he was right. I also knew I was scared to walk through anything with Nia again. Nia found a couples therapist within a week, which surprised me. I expected excuses. The therapist's office was in a converted old house in Maple Shade, with soft lamps and a bowl of peppermints on the table. We sat on a couch that was too small for the distance between us. The therapist, Dr. Karen Whitmore, had kind eyes and a voice that did not flinch. She asked why we were there. Nia started to speak, then looked at me as if waiting for permission. I spoke first. I am tired of being treated like an inconvenience, I said, and I am tired pretending that doesn't hurt. Therapy did not fix anything quickly. It made things louder at first. Nia admitted she had been avoiding intimacy because it required presence, and presence felt like another demand she could fail. I admitted that I had been swallowing resentment until it turned into contempt. Dr. Whitmore asked us to describe a recent moment we felt disconnected. I described the party. Nia's cheeks flushed. She said, I asked you to dance because it was supposed to be a nice moment. Dr. Whitmore asked, Nice for who? Nia's mouth tightened. She whispered, For us. Dr. Whitmore didn't argue. She just waited. After a long silence, Nia sighed. For me, she admitted. The honesty hit the room like a drop plate. The weeks turned into a routine of trying and failing and trying again. Some days Nia was attentive in a way that felt genuine. Other days she slipped into old habits, vanishing into her phone, treating conversation like a chore. When she slipped, I did not explode. I said, You're doing it again. That sentence became a line. We both learned to respect. One night, she snapped, I'm not your employee. The old me would have apologized for needing something. Instead, I said, Then stop treating me like a task. She went quiet, and for once, she did not dismiss my words. The hardest part was not anger. It was the grief of realizing how much I had accepted. I thought about the little ways I trained myself not to expect too much. Eating dinner alone without asking where she was, keeping my story short because she did not listen, saving jokes for coworkers because at least they smiled. In therapy, Dr. Whitmore asked me when I first noticed the ignoring. I said, I noticed late. She asked why. I stared at the carpet. Because noticing meant deciding, I said, and deciding meant losing what I thought we had. Nia cried quietly beside me. I did not reach for her. I was still learning what was real. One night in March, Snow fell heavy and wet, clinging to the cars like frosting. Nia came home late without texting. Old panic surged through me, not because I thought she was cheating, but because I felt forgotten again. When she walked in shaking snow from her coat, I said, "You didn't tell me." She looked startled, then defensive. My shift ran over. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it. I felt my chest tighten. I made another decision. Instead of accusing, I asked a simple question. "Do you want this marriage?" I said. She froze as if the question had weight she could not lift. She set her phone down on the counter, face down. That small gesture mattered more than any speech. "Yes," she said, voice thin. "I do." I watched her carefully. "Then act like it." I replied. She nodded, blinking hard. "I don't know how to come back," she whispered. Something in me softened, not because she deserved easy forgiveness, but because the sentence sounded like surrender. I pointed to the kitchen table. "Sit," I said. We sat for 2 hours, talking in messy pieces. She admitted she had been terrified of being needed because she already felt inadequate. I told her being needed was not the enemy. Being unseen was. Alondra invited us to Sunday service a few weeks later, and I went even though church can feel like a mirror you cannot avoid. The sanctuary was bright, the choir strong, the kind of singing that makes your chest vibrate. During the greeting, Alondra hugged us both and whispered, "I'm proud of y'all for showing up." Nia's eyes watered. After service, in the fellowship area where people lined up for coffee and pound cake, an older deacon's wife took Nia's hands and said, "Marriage is attention," like it was a simple fact. Nia nodded, as if she was hearing it for the first time. I watched her carry that sentence like something fragile. Despite the progress, the damage did not vanish. I still flinched when she picked up her phone mid-conversation. I still felt small when she corrected me in front of others. At a family cookout in early April, Nia laughed at her cousin's joke and then stepped away to take a call. I stood by the grill, staring at the smoke curling into the air, and I felt the old loneliness rise. I could have swallowed it again. Instead, I walked over and said quietly, "I need you to stay present." She stared at me, then told her cousin, "I'll call you back." She returned to group without drama. The change was not romantic. It was respectful. That was new. One afternoon, I found Nia sitting on the guest room bed, the room that had become mine, holding a small notebook. She looked up when I entered, embarrassed. "I've been writing," she said, tapping the notebook. "Dr. Whitmore said to track when I check out." I sat beside her, careful, and I asked. She opened the notebook and showed me a page full of dates and short notes. Felt criticized. I felt tired. I felt afraid. Avoided. It was humbling to see her name and her own patterns without blaming me. "I didn't realize how often I run," she admitted. "I don't want to keep doing that." My throat tightened. I nodded once. "Then don't," I said, and the simplicity made us both laugh softly, not because it was easy, but because it was honest. The anniversary of Alondra's birthday party arrived in conversation months later, on a random Tuesday. We were washing dishes together. Nia was drying plates, and I was scrubbing a pan. The radio played low in the background. Nia said, "I still think about that night." Her voice was gentle, not accusing. I paused. "Me too," I said. "I hated hurting Alondra's day." Nia swallowed. "You didn't hurt her day," she said. "I did. I made our marriage so brittle that one moment snapped it in public." She set the plate down carefully. "When you said no, it felt like you finally saw me clearly," she whispered. I nodded. "I did," I said, "and I saw me too." The story does not end with a neat bow. We did not become perfect. We became aware. Nia moved back into our bedroom slowly, not as a reward, but as a mutual agreement after months of effort. We set rules that felt awkward at first. Phones away during dinner, one evening walk a week even when it was cold, honest check-ins that were allowed to be uncomfortable. Some nights we failed and tried again. Some nights we sat on the couch and held hands in silence, not because we had nothing to say, but because silence can be safe when it is shared instead of weaponized. I learned that love is not just staying. It is showing up. I also learned that refusing to dance was not a punishment. It was a mirror. It forced Nia to face how she had been using public affection as cover for private neglect. It forced me to face how long I had accepted scraps. Months after the party, Alondra told me, "I'm glad you didn't explode. You just stopped cooperating with the lie." That sentence stayed with me. There's so many ways to beg. Sometimes begging looks like silence. Sometimes dignity looks like a calm no. I do not wish that night on anyone, but I respect what it revealed. One last detail matters. Alondra, months later, threw a smaller gathering, just family, no DJ at her house. She cooked gumbo and made everyone play a ridiculous trivia game. At one point, she asked Nia and me to stand together for a picture. Nia turned to me and said quietly, "Only if you want to." It was such a simple sentence. It was also everything. I nodded. "I want to," I said. We took the picture, and for once it felt like the truth, not a performance. Alondra smiled behind her phone. "That's better," she said, satisfied like a teacher seeing growth. I still think about the fellowship hall sometimes. The smell of fried chicken, the dim lights, the music vibrating to the floor, my wife's hand in mine for the wrong reason. People focus on the refusal, on the drama, but the real story is what happened after. The quiet mornings, the hard questions, the refusal to return to invisibility. Nia is not a villain in my mind. She is a person who ran from discomfort until she ran into consequences. I am not a hero. I am a man who waited too long and finally stopped. We both had to own our parts without hiding behind excuses. If you ask me whether the marriage was saved, I would say that is the wrong question. The old marriage ended the moment Nia learned to live without noticing me, and I learned to tolerate it. What we built afterward is different. It has scars. It also has honesty. And honesty is not romantic in movies, but it is what makes real life livable. Sometimes, the turning point is not a shouting match. Sometimes it is a quiet refusal in a room full of music, a boundary drawn with a steady voice. That night at Alondra's party, I refused to dance. Months later, we learned how to stop dancing around the truth. The moment that matters most here is not the hallway confrontation or the awkward ride home. It is that small line Nia said later. "Only if you want to," because it showed she finally understood consent in presence of the same kind of respect. And it is the line I learned to say, "You're doing it again," because boundaries only work when they are consistent, not emotional. If you take anything from this, take the decision point. When someone only offers affection for appearances, you can either perform or you can choose a discomfort that tells the truth. The truth hurts, but also gives you a chance to rebuild something real. If this hit home, especially the moment she asked for a picture and said, "Only if you want to," then you already know this wasn't about one dance. It was about finally setting a boundary that tells the truth. If you want more stories like this, like the video, share it and subscribe, and tell me in the comments what you call this lesson. Boundaries or wake-up call. The end.